Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chapter 12 is also called Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti means a bhakti where there's no otherness. That means it's not a bhakti that is done at a particular time, at a particular place, where only in that time and place the devotion applies. It is a devotion which is non-stop. It always lasts. And what Krishna is saying is he is using several words in chapter 12. Chapter 12. He's using the word Samanya Dharma. Samanya Dharma. So Samanya Dharma is whenever your personal values or your personal fancies, which are not quite clean, or sometimes they're naughty, they are perhaps, right, they're rude, they are harsh, they are abrasive, they are unpolished, they are perhaps non-refined, and they could have some improvement, whether it is how you say things, how softly you speak, when you speak, how you deliver, and the tone of your voice, or how much am I keeping with the truth, how well am I communicating, how am I able to own up that there is something missing inside and I need to look into that. All of these things have to be looked at. Now, whenever we have this tendency to not look into it and just sort of take a shortcut because it's easy, then you have to bring your mind back to what's called Samanya Dharma. Samanya Dharma are those universal ethics, universal values, which are always true and they are good for you. They are that which is good for you. So Samanya Dharma just really means that which is good for you, that which wants your well-being. So whenever my values override Samanya Dharma, we call this Raga, Dvesha, they override that which is good for me. And we feel that in the form of, guilt, a sense of shame or embarrassment, or maybe embarrassment, or something that just doesn't feel quite right. So you have to then assess that and say, okay, what little can I do to recover? Let me go into recovery mode. Whoever it is with, whether it is with a partner, a child, a business partner, an employee, whoever it is with, how can I recover and bring back myself to that sense of harmony where we are both feeling good, we can both reconnect, and we can both remain friends. We can both reconnect and make things happen. So Samanya Dharma is this recovery system. And Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Mahabharata, why does he prefer Pandavas? Does he prefer Pandavas over Kauravas? Does he prefer Pandavas over Kauravas? No. He just the Pandavas happen to be on the side of what is good for me, what is good for everyone. And Krishna is favorable to that one. Lord is favorable to that one who is aligned to Samanya Dharma. Therefore, you cannot expect the consequences for Dharma and Adharma to remain exactly the same. That will be an infallible order. The order is infallible. That means it doesn't make mistakes. Therefore, it has to provide a different kind of a compensation system. That's the only way you can grow. Think about that. There's no other way. Imagine there was no sense of difference between dharma and adharma. You literally couldn't tell, no matter what technique you use, whether you are evolving or not. So it is this very dharma, samanya dharma, which everyone knows about, that which is good for me, which tells you directly whether what I'm doing is actually good for me, actually good for you. So let's take an example. Suppose you go to a temple, and that is punyam. Like yesterday, we went to the temple, we got punyam. Now, how you attend to the temple and what you do and how much reverence you have, that's also the kind of level of punyam. Whether you give to some people who are asking for money, that's additional punyam. But that punyam quickly gets offset by papam. The moment you go back into the world and start to make these mistakes, starts to go over what is good for you. So what does this mean? If we're constantly gaining punyam and papam, what does this mean? How do we then benefit? Because you obviously want punyam in your life. Punyam brings you goodness for you. What does this mean?
You have to do karma yoga.
You have to do good. You have to do things that give you more punyam than papam. You have to do constantly more things to give you punyam. This is very important because we think that doing one action, I've now gotten punyam. In fact, maybe you can relate to this. Did you ever have a time where you did something and people liked you and you got some approval, but that was the end of that? That's it. That's your punyam is exhausted. So you have to constantly, in this world, keep on getting punyam in order to keep receiving the benefits, keep reaping the benefits of this law. It doesn't end. Doesn't end until the last breath. So the question is, what is your action by which you keep on getting more punyam? What is the action by which you keep on replenishing your punyam?
Sticking to samanya dharma.
Sorry?
Sticking to samanya dharma.
Sticking to samanya dharma, that means recovering whenever I fall back, and the fallbacks may happen over and over again. We all fall back once in a while. Whatever it is for you, whatever opportunity you can help out, this is wonderful. I was very touched when my teacher told me something so simple, to keep punyam, to want a good life, because punyam gives you a good life, you literally have to keep on doing actions that give you more punyam. It doesn't stop. So I thought, what can I do to keep on getting more punyam? Well, you can keep teaching, you can keep on giving, you can keep on... because see, the moment you no longer, for example, upload to YouTube, your subscribers stops. No more punyam. No more emails. People no longer asking you questions. It's funny. Even people who have been with you for years, the moment you start to upload and get active, you're active in this field of action, suddenly people start to also get active. You're like, how is this? Where's the connection? Even in business, I observed this for many years. The moment I kind of, change something in my product, which is, removing some benefit or some feature, then people just there's no orders. Like 24 hours, there's no orders. And then I put back the feature that I took away, and the orders start again. What kind of a system is this? How do people even know that I took out the feature or not? Just suddenly orders start to come back in. So I'm like, okay, don't touch it. So there's something about the system that kind of recognizes, right, your punyam and your papam that you don't even know. But I've been observing this for many years in business, and I'm like, I'm totally confused by this. It's like the universe knows what I'm doing, and people just start to flood and like, order, you got 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 order. Change something, stops. And I'm like, oh, wow, no orders. What do I do? Put it back, you got order, you got order, you got order, you got order. It's amazing. So, samanya dharma, and then we have swadharma. Swadharma means dharma. See, that's your own, right? Your own, in this case, dharma is a duty. So here dharma was more of ethics, but here the word dharma changes into duty. And here the dharma is ethics. That means dharma has two kinds of words, okay? So swadharma, this means that everyone comes connected to different people, yeah? That means you cannot expect to act the same towards strangers, your mother-in-law, your father, your mom, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, teacher, colleagues, friends, students. You can't expect to act the same towards all people. That means there has to be some variation that I am expected to perform towards my parents, towards my friend, towards my brother, towards the student, towards my teacher. And that variation is always going to ask me one question: what am I expected to do now? And the answer to that will always depend on who is it that you're dealing with. What am I expected to do now in this situation? And this question becomes really important when you are surrounded by those who are close to you, because they tend to evoke our true emotions, don't they? Others who we are not associated with, not so much. But your true feelings about how you perceive yourself, whether you have any kind of distortions in you, really comes out who are close to you. And in that situation, I need to ask, what am I expected to do now that I'm being confronted with this person that I can't get away with because, we are so close? And the answer again reverts back to samanya dharma, that which is good for me and you. Thereby, the question is, what is expected of me now? As a teacher, my expectations of what is expected of me is very different, isn't it, when I'm talking to you downstairs? Now, if I start to act like your friend here, that already becomes slightly inappropriate, because there needs to be a certain level of professionalism, certain level of connection. Therefore, I have to change my roles. I have to flexibly adjust. It goes back to flexibility. And we have to have the courage to be able to do that. We can't remain the same towards all people. The world is simply not made like that. That's why Krishna wasn't the same towards Pandavas and the Kauravas. It doesn't mean he hates the Kauravas. He just has to have a different kind of a conduct. Okay? Samanya dharma, swadharma. What else is Krishna telling us in chapter 12? Ishvara arpana buddhi. Buddhi. So Ishvara arpana buddhi means that all actions that I do are going to the altar of Ishvara. This means I understand before I put an action into the field that the entire universe is a manifestation of Ishvara. Therefore, nothing is really going outside of Ishvara. It is all governed by Ishvara's laws. Therefore, I cannot quite cheat the system. So this means there's a certain expectation from me that when I give, that giving is complying with samanya dharma. Therefore, this whole arpana buddhi, that means my buddhi is switched on, that when I'm giving, I'm not just giving to a random field, I'm giving to the manifestation of Ishvara, the very Ishvara that I need for my own well-being. Therefore, it automatically turns on responsibility. It's not like be responsible. We're not telling you be responsible. It's simply understanding the cost of not being responsible costs me. It is painful to not be responsible. Thereby, the person automatically becomes responsible, knowing that you're only ever swimming, diving, throwing, receiving from the orders of Ishvara. And how do you deposit your action into the field? You simply ask one question: what impact will this action have on me and my surroundings? What impact will this action have on me and my surroundings? That's Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. Then we have something called Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. This is all chapter 12, by the way. These are all terms of chapter 12. Prasada Buddhi. Now, Prasada we tend to interpret as, like a little gift box. You know, a gift box, someone gives you a nice gift box. So this means that whatever you receive is a little kind of a package. And it's a package to be opened, and there's a lesson for me in there. And that lesson is specifically made for me. And if I able to open that package and I look inside and I'm able to listen to the message, no matter what kind of consequences you got from life, you will learn something precious, something that will help me to remove those distortions from my life that deny me the recognition of my full nature. So prasada buddhi, this is to be remembered, it's a blessing, it's an offering, it's a learning opportunity. It's painful, but often in painful things, there are big lessons that are hidden for me. And thereby, I recognize it is coming from the infallible laws, and infallible laws don't make mistakes. And because they don't make mistakes, this isn't a punishment. It's not even a reward. It's just an impersonal return coming back to me as a result of many past actions that have taken place. Thereby, what kind of a maturity, what does this do for you? It makes you live with a certain composure, a certain equanimity. Yes, this is not pleasant right now. But what has to be done right now? What's next? What is the solution to this? So it turns you on your intellect. Because you know, there's no point complaining. If I complain, I'm going to get more of the same problem. It doesn't fix anything. Thereby, let's turn on my Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. Let's turn on my problem-solving skills. This has happened, now what? How do I return back, come back to order? Therefore, when we go back home, which will be very soon, challenges will happen. Things will happen between us, between relationships, between friends. Some people will go away, maybe. Some people may even die, we don't know. New people will come into your life, and some challenges will come. Then my question is, how will you respond to that in the light of this? Your question. How about in the light of this? How do I respond to those tough challenges that come my way?
Osmotic mechanism.
It's a feedback mechanism, yeah. What do I now have to do because of this? And it's a great clarity that you enjoy and you continue to enjoy when you recognize it's not an attack upon you. It's not an attack upon your life or attack upon your identity or an attack upon your human beingness. It just has to provide a compensation system, has to work. That's how it is. That's how the setup is. Therefore, these four make up chapter 12. Ananya Bhakti. Bhakti where there's no otherness. Because when are you not practicing this? It's not even a practice, it's just the way it is. Samanya Dharma is all the time. I've got no choice but to return, reset back to what is to be done. Swadharma, when are you not interacting with roles in different people? When are you not depositing actions into the field? When are you not receiving results? So what Ananya Bhakti that there's no otherness other than Ishvara, it simply presents this model to you and shows you that truly, factually, you're never outside the laws. And it readjusts your attitude that it's not just about these actions and and results and actions, but it is coming from Ishvara's order. So this Ananya Bhakti, what's another name for it? You want to take a guess? So Ananya.
Karma Yoga.
Excellent. Ananya Bhakti equals Karma Yoga. So what does Karma Yoga involve? All these four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? 2 names for the same thing. So we are also now learning about Karma Yoga and Ananya Bhakti. Okay. So I want to now ask, how do you bring Ishvara into your life? How do you bring Ishvara into your life? Just to make this clear before we move on to the further verses. First of all, just to ask the question, how do I bring Ishvara into my life? What does this imply? I have to first know what is this Ishvara. So this means that if I have an idea that Ishvara is some all-loving being, beneficent all-loving being, that's an error. Because if Ishvara, which is the intelligence pervading all things, was all-loving, then everything would be all-loving all the time. Or Ishvara is, my prayers are unanswered. Therefore, Ishvara doesn't care about me, forgot about me. Again, I'm turning Ishvara into some person, into some being who has a memory, who kind of forgets things, who I have to kind of please. So I have to, first of all, get rid of ideas what Ishvara is not. Ishvara is not some entity with some, brain, with some total mind, with some kind of a personal preferences for liking you or disliking you. Is not some, some kind of a unfair system that says you gotta pray more. You gotta pray more. I'm not gonna listen. Ishvara is always listening.
Not partial to anyone.
Yeah, Ishvara is impartial, unbiased, impersonal, impartial, unbiased, impersonal. Just responding according to the compensation system. Next, so I first have to know what Ishvara is not. Next step, what is Ishvara? Before I can bring Ishvara into my life. We said Ishvara is the intelligence that pervades all things. It manifests as forms, and it also manifests as laws which are governing the interactions of those forms. Therefore, anything I see, experience, participate with is none other than Ishvara. So I've understood what Ishvara is not. I understand what is the right definition of Ishvara. Now I can say the question, knowing this, how does this change my life? Otherwise, it's all intellectual knowledge. You have to turn it into the heart, remember? Heart space. So knowing this, how does knowing Ishvara of what it really is transform my life? How do you think? What do you think? How would this now change your life every day, in everyday situations?
There's no escaping this established order. So if one is lucky to get this knowledge, then it is better to abide by the rule. And that's how the world works, the usual world. And so this is just a replica of what we are already doing. But this we can escape, but on the other, we are always caught.
This is good what Vijay is saying. So it's like saying, this hotel, we are in a 5-star hotel. This is not my analogy, this is Swami Dayananda's analogy, and I just extended it a little bit. So he has this analogy of a 5-star hotel, and we are all in a 5-star hotel. Why? Because we have everything we need. We've got the essentials, the sunlight, the air, friends, pramana, gurus. It's all there. Internet, AI, it is definitely 5 stars. If you think it's less than 5 stars, the person has to kind of reassess their perception. It's truly 5-star hotel here that we're living, wherever we are. So now if I'm a 5-star hotel and I'm a guest, when you go to somebody's hotel, there's always a host. And the host has a little list of rules. And those rules are not to punish you, right? They're not to give you a hard time. Why are the rules there?
To keep everybody happy.
To keep everyone happy. Because 3 people will walk inside that hotel and they will all have different ideas how to act according to their samskaras and their life conditioning. And thereby they will all kind of have competing self-interest. And now competing self-interest times not 3, but more like 100, more like 8 billion, it's not going to work at all. So you have to have some overarching, quote, governor, which sets the rules, called Samanya Dharma. And that overarching governor sets the rules of this hotel. And thereby I enter into this hotel and says, here's the rules, you have to switch off the lights, by this, no loud music. And if you kind of spill and you don't clean this up, we will subtract some punyam points from your bank account. And therefore you will be punished by the time you check out. Literally, you will be punished. And thereby, and so you're like, oh, I'll be punished, I can't help it because they're not trying to punish me. They just have to have these laws enforced for my well-being. Look at this. For your well-being, but also for the well-being of somebody else, your next door neighbor. That's how the system has to work. That's how complex it is. Ishvara has already figured it all out. Ishvara knows, I'm going to be producing billions of jivas. Not that Ishvara is an entity, but billions of jivas will be produced, and they will have so many competing ideas. And if there isn't some universal system, the whole thing will fall apart, guaranteed. And nobody can profit, nobody can learn, no one can get along, no teaching can take place. Therefore, we can have trust in Ishvara, because this is a 5-star hotel. We are trusting his laws called Samanya Dharma. Therefore, I ask, how does this transform my life? Simple. Number one, I can trust these laws. They are for my and your interest. They are keeping us alive. Second of all, there's no such thing as an unfair world. Now, when you see some fool driving a loud car or making a loud noise, you're no longer so disturbed by that because you recognize there's a compensation system. The person may be getting away with it for a while, but the compensation system has doesn't exempt anyone, no matter what place, no matter what societal position they're in. Maybe not this life, certainly next life or 20 lifetimes later. Therefore, this gives you more sense of strength and less complaints. Because we complain as long as we think, oh, this person's getting away with it, Duryodhana, he's not getting punished, he's being so unfair. So it's very complaining mode. But when you recognize, hey, the compensation system has its own laws, and I may not be patient enough to see how it all unfolds, but there is a compensation system. And that compensation system is keeping me and you alive right now. Therefore, the consequences are always there, and we stop making judgments. Because judgments only come when we don't have a fallback. If I don't have a fallback, then I have no choice but to complain and to judge people. But if I do have a fallback and I understand this person is driven by so many conditions in their life, they had a background, a history that may not be pleasant at all. They come from a broken family, perhaps, a society that itself has contributed to their behavior, a culture that itself has contributed to their behavior, parents who themselves were not very well educated by grandparents. Such a long history of variables that has made and sculpted this person who is doing bad things in this world. And thereby you become a lot more understanding, not out of fakeness, oh, I am understanding towards people, but out of mere recognition that we are all, born in this complex world of many variables, and we have to share this world together. Therefore, you become stronger and more clear to do what is to be done when someone is transgressing the laws. If it's safe. If it's not safe, then it's not my part to play. Yeah, a certain acceptance, I call it an active, proactive acceptance, not passive acceptance, proactive acceptance. Passive acceptance is seeing a person over there doing bad things, and I'm just sitting back going, all there is here is Ishvara, there's a compensation system, they're going to get punished, but I'm just watching. I can fully do something, but I don't do anything. Just like Bhishma and and the whole court didn't do something when Draupadi was being disrobed. That's called passive acceptance. Oh, this is just happening. Yudhishthir, he could have made a decision to exit the game anytime, but he didn't. It's not my right to interfere. He's a grown man. It's not my kind of, and I'm just watching him lose everything. It's terrible. I know so much damage is going to get created. It doesn't matter. That's passive. Active is stop. This game is not good. This is not good. It's my duty to interfere out of my own clarity and say something. If I don't, then those who are less courageous will not benefit. They will be corrupted. And that corruption will influence you because you knew you could do something and you didn't. And as long as that's true, that's papam points onto me. And you will have to then again be subject to the compensation system. So this means that when something is not going our way, we recognize there's a larger order here, and I have to recover and realign myself into that larger order. So this much is chapter 12. And now the question is, having consistently engaging in these four, what is that person who has become a bhakta, who is a bhakta, not become. There is no such thing as I've become a bhakta, that's it. This is lifelong practice. So that person, what kind of things do they enjoy? What is some of the features about this person? And we have talked about them, such as verse 17, they do not grieve. It says they do not desire, which we talked about. One who has given up this need to act out of constant likes and dislikes, pressures, binding. So they dropped all of this. Now, verse 18. What else? What are the more traits of this accomplished bhakta? Let's see. Verse 18. Samaha shatraucha mitrecha tathamana apamanayoho shita ushna sukha dukkeshu samaha sangha vivarjitaha. Same in reference to enemy and friend. How many personalities are there in the world? So many. Are you going to get along with all of them? It's not possible. It's unrealistic. So this means knowing that I'm not going to get along with everyone, I need to retain a certain composure towards those incompatible personalities without getting sucked in. Because sometimes you have to deal with them. So you have to hold certain boundaries and say, okay, this much I'm going to do. This is my duty right now. But hold certain boundaries so that it doesn't, what Swami Dayananda calls, I don't internalize it. It doesn't start to eat me from inside out. It doesn't get underneath my skin. And you have to find a strategy how to deal with these types so that you can still do what is being asked of you, because remember Samanya Dharma, what is expected of me, but at the same time, you hold a certain composure, a certain boundary, and say, this is enough. Is there anything else that I can help you with? If the answer is no, I can move on. What about those enemies who don't wish you well, and you can't do anything about it? Who don't wish you well, and you can't set boundaries. What is your last option here?
Go away.
Go away. You could exit the situation. Yeah.
Ignore, avoid.
Ignore. Okay. I heard a very interesting thing, which is my preference, which is pray for them. Why would you pray for them? Because it's kind of counterintuitive. Because why is a person hurting you? Because they have distortions. They are in pain. There's a phrase in psychology that says, hurt people hurt. Those who are hurt, because of their childhood notions and so on, they end up hurting you. They're coming out of these distortions, and it has nowhere to go out except onto you. You just happen to be in the line of fire. Therefore, what I can do is I can pray for them, because when you pray for a person, you are in one way saying that I do have some control. So it's making you feel better, number one. Number two, the prayer is in some way, because it's a good prayer, it's not kind of bad things. A good prayer is helping them come to a point, in some ways, of clarity. To come to the point of clarity to recognize what I'm doing is not healthy for me. Never mind the other person, that's too far for them to figure out. But what I'm doing is hurting me. So when you pray for them, oh Lord, may this person have the clarity to recognize that what they're doing is costing them their happiness, and it's not healthy for them. May they come to that slow, gentle, gradual recognition that this kind of attack is costing them peace, and that is not what they want. And then let it go. Om Tat Sat. So this means prayer allows you to have some level of, some level of giving, but also you affect them, apparently you affect them in some way or the other. Okay? So this is, enemies. And now, do I have to talk about friends? Same in reference to enemies and friends. Friends are friends. Now, same in reference. People are people. I have to do what is to be done according to Samanya Dharma. Because your friend can let you down any moment. Therefore, I have a certain objectivity towards my friends. I say, hey, let's come together. But at any moment, that can shift. And, I think people have seen that in their life. I've certainly seen that myself. Okay?
That hurts us more. That hurts us more.
That hurts you more, yeah. Because
from enemy we don't expect anything.
yeah,
Hurts a lot.
yeah, that hurts a lot. Because if you're betrayed, all that trust that's been built and so much connection and so much, and suddenly things are just 360, 180 around it, like, what? I wasn't expecting this from this kind of person. Yeah, so it does hurt. Therefore, we have a certain composure, hey, and certain fallback. If you don't have a fallback, you have to have some backup, someone that you can kind of turn to, some person in your life. It always helps to have somebody else, someone by your side. Otherwise, if you just depend on one person, that person lets you down, then it becomes so much harder to deal with. And then same in honor and dishonor. Suppose a person is idealizing you because you're great. And teachers see this a lot. And they put you on this pedestal and they like you. And everything's going wonderful. But if this person doesn't have the right maturity, when you do something that is not keeping with their expectations, they will put you at the bottom rung of the ladder as quickly as they've put you up. And when this happens, it's going to hurt even more. If you're not careful and you don't understand, this is very, very much possible. Therefore, when a person honors you, thank you very much. When a person dishonors you, recognize it's got very little to do with you. Almost nothing to do with you. It's got to do with their initial, how do we call it? There's a psychological term. Superimposition, positive projection, positive superimposition.
Inferiority complex?
No, they just project positive traits onto you and you become this big figure for them. And that is equally possible to be reversed, that whole role. Therefore, when Krishna says same in honor and dishonor, then recognize that people can find defects. They can start finding defects in you any moment. That can happen. They can equally start finding how you are great and wonderful. Both of them are possible. That is none of my business, quite frankly. I just do my swadharma. I do what has to be done in this situation. What people think of you, that should be secondary. What I want to do, what is the right thing to be done now, is primary. And then he says, same in cold or heat. This represents physical discomfort. And pain and pleasure. This represents mental discomforts. So, can you totally avoid physical and mental discomforts? Not one person. Not one person. No matter how advanced we are, no way. So, if we cannot avoid it, and it's not possible, then it stands to reason to say that I have to have some level of titiksha, some level of resilience. So this means that if you cannot totally avoid physical and mental discomfort, then it stands to reason that I have to have some level of preparation, some level of recognition that my life can go through, kind of a little bit of troughs and peaks, troughs and peaks, troughs and peaks. Now, nobody complains when it's at the peak. It is when we are at the trough. Trough just means the down position. So there I have to recognize there is no peak without a trough. So as many peaks as you got, generally, just a general rule, that many troughs I will receive. So this means that when you receive a trough, what is your attitude? There's a peak coming after. That's just how life is made. It's a
Zero sum nature.
huh?
Zero sum nature.
Yeah, dual nature of reality. It's amazing. So that's just how the Ishwara's laws are set up in this world.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass, and that certainly joys too shall pass.
Yes.
Yeah, and, yes, it's amazing.
Peak and drop.
Mm.
Everything pass.
So where are you now? I don't know. Maybe you're at the peak. Maybe we're all at the peak now, and we all come out, no more bubble now with the trough. But you know what's going to happen? The mind needs some time to integrate this. And the more it integrates it, maybe a month or 2 or 3 later, it starts to rise back up. And we have to be patient. This is the nature of every human being. Whether you're wise or unwise, peaks and troughs certainly are to come. There's a nice story of what happens when you don't understand that mental and physical discomforts are a possibility. They're absolutely expected in life, right? So there is a husband who was traveling with his wife in the train. And it was a long journey. So he asked her, "Have you brought water?" And she said, "No." So then he started to complain how you didn't bring water, what were you thinking, this is a long journey, they don't serve water on the train, and now I'm very thirsty, you don't care about us, and I cannot work, and my mouth is dry, and I cannot talk. In fact, the more he complains, the more his mouth gets dry, okay? So he spends so many words complaining, making the problem even worse. Finally, the train stops at a station. First thing he does is goes out and buys a bottle of water. And he satiates his thirst. He goes back in the train, and everything's okay for a while, until again, he starts to weave in the conversation about she not bringing the water bottle. How come you never thought of bringing a water bottle? What's wrong with you? You don't love me. This is not fair. So this means that before, at least he had a reason to complain, but it was exaggerated by blame. Now he's got no reason to complain, and he's just complaining because he's got no greater fallback. He's got nothing greater to fall back on. He doesn't understand that life is a mixture of ups and downs. And when the down hits, when the up comes, there's also a down. So I have to recognize that both combinations are possible any moment, and this reduces this whole need to complain. Because the mind is like that. It always wants to attach to some kind of a thing to play out in its mind. It wants to hold on to something, like the water bottle. Therefore, we need to give this mind something larger to fall back on. Otherwise, it's going to constantly take these mental and physical discomforts and make a life out of them. So my question is now, I've asked this question many times, what is your greater fallback that will give your mind something to fall back on and keep it uplifted when you fall? What will gently bring it back up in a neutral way, in a nice, gentle, neutral way? That has to be clear. Verse 19, more traits of a bhakta. Tulya ninda stutihi mauni santushtaha yena kena chit aniketaha stiramatihi bhaktiman me priyaha naraha. The one who is equal to censure and praise, in other words, criticism and praise, and use the word tulya ninda stutihi. So, see, when someone praises you or criticizes you, that actually has to do more with that person than you. Because it lets you know where they're at. If they praise you, they're mature enough to recognize or to connect with the qualities that are good. They have those qualities, and they recognize those qualities quite well. Okay? Conversely, when they criticize you, it lets you know that they're not able of seeing something about you that makes you great, something about you that is wonderful. So this means their eye tends to be more on finding faults rather than looking for good things. Now, sometimes criticism is very useful, but as long as it's delivered in a polite way, so you don't hurt the person, and your intention is to help them improve, then it's wonderful. But when it's a sort of a criticism like you don't know, and you have no clue what you're talking about, which teachers, I mean, speaking for myself, I'll give an example what a criticism is. So one time on my video on YouTube, you get comments. Someone was looking at a video on Atma. What is Atma? And I was explaining Atma is, presence, in whose presence everything comes and goes, the revealer of all things. And this person, coming from a different school of philosophy, said, you have no clue what you're talking about. Atma is is inside the seed, and it is, you can see it under a microscope, and you clearly don't know anything what you're saying. And he created this mixture of science and Atma, and used the analogy of water and wave and ocean and H2O, and he combined it all together, and he presented this nice argument, how I have no clue what I'm talking about. That's just one example. If I could remember more, I would probably tell you, but you get the idea. So the person has nothing, no knowledge about you, little understanding of the subject matter, and they make a premature conclusion, and they feel great about it. Kids also do the same thing. My teacher put up the program for Bhagavad Gita for children. And what do the children say? Actually, chapter 13 values, those 20 values. And she wants to simplify it for children. And she said that, the kids, they're just so, Indian children, so entitled. They're saying how they don't need these values, how they're useless, how they're old, knowledge, how there's no applicable to today's world. And she said they're saying so many confident things without even asking what these values are. They're just making these affirmative suggestions without knowing anything about what this really is about. And so the kids were not sticking around in the class. I don't think it worked out, that kids class for 20 values, because they were criticizing constantly the teaching and the Bhagavad Gita. It's amazing. How do you get to these people? That's another subject matter. But in this case, when it says, equal to censure and praise, remember, even Rama and Krishna, who are avatars, Lord incarnate, even they were constantly criticized. If Lord incarnate was constantly criticized, what to say about you and I? You see? Therefore, it is in the past, the present, and the future. That's how it is. The more brilliant you rise, the more critics you will get. But also you will get people who will recognize you and they will be touched by your words. And remember, both of them make a statement about the person and less about you. Of course, it's wonderful to get feedback how well you're doing so you can improve. But remember, there's a certain objectivity that you enjoy towards both. Therefore, we have to be strong. Both. When you get a praise, thank you, Lord. May this positive trait develop in me even more. When you get a criticism, look into it. Is there something for me to learn? If yes, let me look into it. But remove the harsh words, the harsh delivery. Because a person, when they criticize, they often do it in two steps. Number one, they deliver using their own kind of tone, and usually comes off as abrasive, as harsh, as dismissive. But in that dismissive, harsh, and abrasive tone, what is the magic? What is the secret? What is the secret sauce? The feedback that you really need to learn. So you have to learn to separate the tone and the delivery, which often comes off as harsh and dismissive, and take what they really want to say and use that for self-improvement. In that case, every criticism becomes very precious and useful. And don't call anything as your own. Even if you call something your own, it's not a big deal. But what Krishna wants to say is, recognize that everything was already here. The material was here. Your body was here, right? The food was here. The knowledge was here. So actually, I can't really call everything really my knowledge, my intelligence, my greatness, my brilliance, my glory of being a student who's in Vedanta or being a teacher. it's not really mine. I am entrusted this body. I am entrusted this body for a very short amount of time, as we spoke, and therefore I have a duty to take care of it because it is not my body. It is not my knowledge. It is not my brilliance. It is not my greatness. It is not even my moksha. Moksha belongs to the mind. It's not mine. Nothing is truly mine here. So through that, you come to see there's a certain level of humility that I have to understand. I need you. You need me. So I can't really claim my glory, haha. To claim that, I have to have people in front of me. For you to claim your glory, you have to have had teachers and knowledge to put you to where you are now. Therefore, this whole mama, mine, it just simply becomes healthy again. It doesn't go away, but it becomes healthy because you still have to have a transactional, right, person that has to say my phone. Otherwise, if you say nothing's mine, really, okay, your bank account's not yours, huh? Give me access. You're gonna say no. Your house is not yours, huh? Okay, can I walk into your door anytime? You're probably gonna say no. Therefore, we're not being unrealistic. We're simply softening this unhealthy sense of mind. You know, in the court system, if a person tries to commit suicide, what happens if they get caught? That's a crime. So in the court system, even there is a recognition that your own body is not yours. If you get caught trying to commit damage onto one's own body, that person is arrested. It's already in the court system. At least it was like that. I think it's still like that.
Police case. It becomes, in India, it becomes police case. Police is
Right. Police gets involved, right? And they arrest because you try to hurt yourself. Inbuilt. Now, next verse, Krishna says, such a devotee is beloved to me. And that's the last verse. Yetu dharmya amritam idam yatha uktam pariyupasate shraddha dhanaha matparamaha bhaktaha te ativa me priyaha. So those devotees who are recognizing that it is Ishvara's order, but who are practicing or returning their minds back to Samanya Dharma, doing what is expected of me, Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Ishvara Prasada Buddhi, those are beloved to me. Now, Krishna points out there are 4 kinds of bhaktas, and he wants to make it a little bit more clear who is the most beloved. Okay? Not that there are, sort of, just to give you some relational words. Now, the first kind of bhakta is called an arti. Arti, A-R-T-A, arti. I'll write it here. Arti. Arti is the one who recognizes that there is a problem in my life and the crisis is here and I need help. So they turn to the Lord only when crises come in the life. That one is still turning to the Lord, but only in those very rare times when I lost the job, or I want my son to kind of get out of the situation, or my daughter to marry a nice good guy, or those rare situations when you need help. Someone's dying from cancer, so I need Ishvara's help. Arti. The second is artharti. Artharti. Now, this person recognizes that there are many unknown variables in your life. Isn't that true? You don't know how many unknown variables there are. But what I can do is I can constantly engage with prayer. I can constantly ask the Lord for, let my finances work out. Let, when I go home, let me have the clarity to know what is to be done with my finances, the clarity what is to be done with my relationship, the clarity to know what is to be done with my domicile where I live, what is to be done with this problematic relationship, to have the clarity what is to be done, etc. So this means they're constantly relating to Ishvara through prayer. This one's slightly more beloved because they have more connection to Ishvara. The third type is called the Jijnasu. 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 A Jijnasu is no longer asking Ishvara for goodies. What is a Jijnasu asking for?
Knowledge.
I want to know who is this Ishvara? What is this Ishvara that I'm keeping on communicating with? So, who is Ishvara? Okay, tiny letters there. Okay, what is Ishvara? Therefore, this person now starts to align more to Ishvara's laws because they're no longer now praying for sort of give me, money, give me this, give me cure cancer. As long as I'm praying for these big things, it means I don't understand Ishvara. Ishvara is not someone who can negate a tumor. It's not someone who can just drop a bag of money from the sky. Rather, Jijnasu starts to refine their prayers, remove those notions in my mind that are preventing me from knowing you completely. Help me to remove those distortions from my mind that are making me, giving me psychological pain. That is a much better prayer to ask than for physical tangible objects. Thereby, Jijnasu changes their language the more they get educated of what is Ishvara. The more they change their language, they start to reflect that in their behavior and their responses. And people pick this up, and then the guru says, I like you. Or you say, I like the guru. And then you connect because of your own self-effort. And finally, when and through that self-effort, what happens? They become clear enough and the final veil gets removed through the guru and the pramana. And this person is called a jnani. The Maya's avarana shakti has been removed. I now know who I am, I know my nature, and therefore this person becomes the greatest devotee of Ishvara, the one who knows Ishvara as Ishvara is. Look at this. If I know you as you are not, can you love me? Think about this. Interesting, isn't it? If I know you as you are not, I'm going to naturally communicate in that kind of a corresponding way. You will kind of be available, but you just can't get yourself to love me so much because I'm not aligned to you as you are. But suppose I know so much about you as you are, as you really are, and you're like, this person understands me from inside out. They're talking my language. They're like one with me. What's going to happen to your love towards me? It's going to be so much bigger. And they're going to give so many more opportunities to me, not out of sort of, let me now give more opportunities to you, but just by our mere association, you're going to be so much more open because I'm open to you. The more I'm open to you, the more you're open to me. The more I'm open to Ishvara, the more Ishvara is open to me. Therefore, the greatest love is one of a wise person. The wise person knows Ishvara as Ishvara is. Therefore, verse 20 says, those who are exceedingly beloved to me. So, conclusion of chapter 12. How did Arjuna start? He said, should I think about Brahman or Ishvara?
By thinking of Ishvara, he's also thinking of Brahman.
Excellent answer.
We cannot think about Brahman.
Excellent answer also. Well done. Therefore, there is no contradiction. If I think about Ishvara, I am not excluding Brahman, but to recognize Brahman, I need to first relate to Ishvara. Therefore, this is the logic of Krishna. He is telling us how to arrive to the final reality. I need that devotion. Through devotion, my mind becomes ready. The ready mind is able to capture reality as it is, and that one is exceedingly beloved to me because he or she knows me as I am. And because they are the most loved by me, I give them the highest accomplishment, the highest achievement in this universe, which is moksha. That's how it is. It's not like the Lord says, I don't love you, therefore I'm not going to give you moksha. You need to first align to me, and I will innocently give back to you. And therefore, you have no choice but to see Ishvara as Ishvara is. And this concludes our chapter 12. And I'm going to close.
So, a jnani who's loving God the most, Ishvara the most, a jnani can still ask for help.
Absolutely yes. Because jnani still has, relative, situations to get through and life to live through. And in fact, a jnani feels comfortable asking. There's no complications about that. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Tsu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Bhakti Yogo Nama Dvadasho Dhyayaha.